Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another film episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and I just swallowed a frog. I hope it wasn't an ancestor. Who's with me tonight?
Red Fox.
And I'm Kendall.
Welcome back, both of you.
Thank you.
Kendall, where can people find you at?
So you can find everything I do at kendallcast.ninja. I do a bunch of podcasts. That's What We Called Music is a song-by-song review of the Now That's What We Call Music catalog. Movie Roundtable is pretty accessible too. It's just monthly.
Yes, it is.
My buddies and I get together and talk about movies and much, much more. So go there and do the thing. This movie's amazing. Oh my gosh. I love this movie so much.
All right, so we are here to talk about 1993's
93.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. Is it Turtles in Time as part of the title? Because that showed up on Netflix.
It's
Okay.
not official.
All right.
It did show up on Netflix because I thought
Not in the actual, it showed up somewhere, not in the movie, but when you search it, it says Turtles in Time. I guess the tagline was,
IMDb says.
The Turtles are back in time.
Yeah, IMDb calls it just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. And it doesn't have, I haven't played the game. Also, that's criminal. IMDb says it's a 4.8 out of 10. That is a 4.8 out of 5, maybe.
This movie's not that good.
This movie is amazing. It is one of the best movies I've seen all year.
So, Rich, as our turtle expert for Games My Mom Found, what was your first experience with this movie? Did you watch it back in the day?
Yeah, I definitely did. I had all three movies on VHS back then, with the cool Burger King commercials at the start of them. No, this is out of all three, the one I watched the least. We'll get into why, but yeah, it wasn't one that was a go-to for me.
I can't understand why. I don't remember seeing this as a kid. I know I did. I vaguely remember it, but I don't have much of a recollection. And I can't even remember if I watched this 5 years ago or 10 years ago when I watched all the movies again. But I did watch it this last week, and I came out of it not the way I expected.
I'll tell you this: the VHS box, it was kind of eye-catching. It had a bright yellow, and then all four turtles on the front, a scepter with the samurai helmets on. It's part of the garb. I mean, it was very eye-catching. But when you turn it on, that's another story.
What about you, Kendall?
So first of all, since you brought up the VHS, I meant to watch this on VHS, but I didn't. I have this on VHS. I can't remember if it's this one or the first one that has Peter, Paul, and Mary's watching the dandelions grow as a Pizza Hut commercial at the beginning. But that song and that was one of the first songs where I was like, that song's like me, because I was in Little League and I played right field, and anyway. So this movie was the first one that came out. I was born in 1987.
Same as me.
Perfect age for Ninja Turtles. I mean, literally, the cartoon series launched a month after I was born, because it launched at the end of 87. So some of my earliest memories are related to Ninja Turtles. I remember going to staying at the babysitter's house while my little sister was born and singing the Ninja Turtles theme song. That's how ingrained Ninja Turtles was into my early childhood. But
I can understand that.
I remember watching. I'm pretty sure I was watching Power Rangers and seeing the first TV spot for Ninja Turtles 3, and it was awesome. This oh my gosh, this movie is so great. So important. I had 1 and 3 on VHS, and then I would constantly borrow 2 from my next door neighbor. And so I watched these movies just over and over and over again. And then, but I haven't, I basically, I don't rewatch movies very much as an adult. And so it had probably been 5 or 6 years since I saw this. Probably, I know that I got the whole set on DVD and definitely watched through that a couple of times in early 2010s. I definitely have watched this with my wife, so that means that I watched it since 2009, but I haven't revisited it a bunch. And man, so many jokes that went right over my head as a kid, but the comedic timing, the action, the self-awareness of how silly the plot is
Oh
this movie is so great. I love when they're getting ready to go back in time, and Michelangelo is the only one that realizes that they're not wearing any clothes, and so they don't want the people to show up naked. So we should wear shorts. And then Splinter says, "We don't have time for this scientific debate." Like, that is such a great line. We don't have time for this scientific debate. Like, it's such
you got anything for that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I do actually. Michelangelo with the shorts, that whole scene right there was the start of me actually enjoying it. And that was like, wow, maybe I can enjoy more out of this movie, because as a kid, I didn't give a damn. So that right there opened the door for me. And I will say that Michelangelo throughout the rest of the movie was the star to me. That made it tolerable. That made it fun for me.
He's funny. And like the lines in this movie are just hilarious too. And like the short thing was funny. Like when he's putting on shorts and they're just looking at him like, what the fuck? And then when they do show up after they jump through time, the guys are all naked.
Right. Yeah, they're in their underwear. So this is the headcanon thing that I realized this time through, and it works because of all the convoluted technobabble. So they established that it has to be equal mass. And they've established that like some of your personal effects come with you. April's Walkman, and then everybody's swords and weapons, come with them. But they also switch clothes. So it does make sense that since the Ninja Turtles like have some bulk on them, that some clothes would transport with the people, because they in order to create that equal mass.
I don't know if that toga or whatever that is would really equal mass, but I guess it's an acceptable explanation.
Well, or the fact that when they switch with the honor guard, they have armor on, but when they switch back, they're not wearing armor. Therefore, their mass would not be nearly the same.
Yeah.
Well, no, but the armor doesn't move. The armor doesn't go forward in time.
Okay, so you're telling me a guy weighs as much as a giant mutant turtle?
I mean, roughly, because the Mutant Turtles, I think there is an implication, even though the suits literally are like, extra big because it's a guy in a suit. There is an implication that they are turtles, so they're probably a little bit smaller, and they might not be as dense, just like, sometimes like, a man and a woman will like have like a similar build, but the man will weigh heavier because the bone density is heavier. So, it's close enough that it works in a kid's movie, and it's a good enough explanation. And they're also like, I just love all the explanations at the beginning, because it's like, it's such an easy concept for a kid to understand, that like, it's a person goes back in time and switches places with a person in the present, and they don't take their clothes with them. Like, that's a pretty easy thing for a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old to understand, but like a nerd needs that explanation, and so they put it there. They put it there just for me.
I did like that they tried to explain it, whether it really made sense or not.
It doesn't.
It doesn't need to. This is a show about turtles that got hit by an ooze and turned into obnoxious teenagers.
Turtles that live in the sewer. Turtles. I can't remember the rest of it.
They didn't have to explain it at all, but I did enjoy that they tried. Even like when Kenshin came over from the past and he's speaking English, and I was like, they're going to explain that there's the English traders, that has to be it, and then they exactly explain it as that. I was like, okay, good. They tried.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated, that it always found a way to do some of that stuff where, like, this is why this is happening. Like, this is why this is happening. Like, I appreciate the fact they made an effort, even though they didn't have to. Like, is this the same April actor as the one in number 2?
In 2, yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
One.
I know it's not the same one from the original movie, because she didn't come back ever.
Right.
They didn't like her, right? Is what it was?
Well, they say she was hard to work with.
Okay. Maybe she wanted more money also.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would know if I'd have seen the second half of that documentary I was watching.
The one that you were watching on purpose for this episode?
Yeah, well, it was obviously an afterthought. I always, when I do these kinds of shows, I always do like a little bit of extra I watch some extra stuff, and I think what I was actually checking to see was like if there were any like of the like I know there have been like straight to DVD Ninja Turtles movies, or like
one or a couple, but there's Turtles Forever, and then there's the Batman Turtles movies.
I think Turtles Forever is the one that I was thinking of, which I did was like doing some very, although I didn't know what it was called, I just was like kind of poking around the streaming services and I stumbled on the documentary. So watch that instead.
Yeah, you can't find that on streaming anywhere.
Okay, well, I'll know that for next time.
Well, you can, but not on legal places. Let's just say that.
yeah, Turtles stuff is sometimes harder to find. But anyway.
So, I mean, this was a movie that, like, the only reason we're doing this is because each year we have done one of the other Turtles films. So I'm like, well, it's time to cover this movie. And, like, all the hatred that this movie has, and I went into it with such a low expectation. And then even my wife was like, I'm not going to watch that. This movie's stupid. I'm like, yep, you're right. And I'm watching it and I just start laughing. Like we were saying, the way the turtles interact with each other. Like they start, I think the early scene you see is them dancing and it's just hilarious. And also, Casey Jones comes back. Oh, and I was 34 years old when I realized that Casey Jones and Whit are the same actor.
Oh, wow. Didn't we talk about this before?
No, I don't know. I had never realized. I've seen this movie before years, and I never realized Casey Jones is the same actor because they even make a comment like, man, you look familiar to the guy.
Yeah. She says, Casey? Yeah, no, it's definitely the same. And he doesn't even have, I love that he like half the time doesn't even have an accent. Like he practically is just the Casey Jones Brooklyn accent. I actually do kind of wish that they had not cut his hair and given him a beard, because it would have been nice if it was a little more obvious that was him.
Yeah.
Because I can almost
recognized it not been 34.
Most kids, they would have gotten it more if he had at least had the hair.
Yeah. Because like I remember like watching it as a kid, and it's like I knew that I knew that she thought he looked like Casey. Like I could kind of tell that, but like he's too good of an actor. Like he's clearly playing a different character, and his hair is different, and has got the different facial hair. And I mean, the older I get, all white people look the same.
You are white, too, by the way.
Yes. I'm white, so I'm allowed to say that.
But the funny thing to me was that, like, people always make that Superman reference, like, oh, people wouldn't be able to tell Superman. No, I completely believe you put glasses on the guy and you're not expecting to be, like, this is another example. I wasn't expecting, even to the same movie, I wasn't expecting the same actor to be playing two different parts, and then my brain just did not, like, I wouldn't think just because one scene, Casey Jones has long hair, the only difference is short hair and facial hair, and I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah, he looks real different. But
it's cool to see him back, because they took him out of 2 because he was too violent in 1, which is not a good movie.
That is what I heard too. I wish he had maybe a little more of a prominent role, whether it was, hanging out the samurai back home, or even in this, like even in that past character, he played a very backseat role only to come to the forefront near the end, which makes sense for storyline. But even then, I just wish he had more of a integrated role, I guess. It
would have been nice to see him do more.
I think Casey Jones is somebody that he's one of these characters that will show up in a Ninja Turtles thing, so that you can check him off the list, but a lot of times is underutilized. I think in the first movie, at least I haven't watched the first movie in a few years, but my memory of it, he's got a decent enough role in that.
He does. He's very involved in the first movie.
And man, I need to revisit the. He pushes the. No, yeah. That's right. He pushes the. He's like, oops, and he does the trash crusher thing.
That's first degree murder, Casey.
Justified.
Yeah. So he commits murder. Oops, hit a button on a trash compactor, and
with knowing something's in it. Yeah.
But
that's murder. Yeah. Attempted murder, at least, since Shredder didn't die.
I haven't, and I haven't revisited. I don't know. I haven't revisited the second movie, but the second movie I feel like has a lot in it that is like disappointing. The Bebop and Rocksteady characters, Toka and Razor, and then they turn out to be babies, and the Shredder, the Super Shredder, like just is kind of nothing.
It is nothing.
It ends as fast as it begins.
But in this, I really felt like the action, the action paid off. I mean, yes, they all swing their swords around and nobody stabs anybody. And
they do hit people in this one.
Yeah, but there's
Donatello beats the hell out of people with that
Yes.
bow staff in this one.
Right. There's definitely some fights that I thought were, at least on par with like the good Power Ranger fights, which, that's a compliment, because if you watch those first couple seasons of Power Rangers, the fight scenes are really good.
Yeah, they kick
Any
ass.
comment, Rich?
They kick ass, man. Of course.
So like I felt like this one either they didn't have as much. I mean, I don't know anything about the behind the scenes, but the sense that I got was that they didn't have as much studio meddling, or they had figured out how to do what they wanted to do without, and still, have it be do what the studio would let them do, but have it be, done in a compelling way or whatever. They figured something out, and the visuals and the action in this were great.
I really wonder.
They're 3 movies in at this point, so they probably knew what they could and couldn't do and how far they can push.
Right.
Like, who was sitting around and thought it was a good idea? Like, we're going to do a time travel movie. Like, it's just an odd concept for Turtles, I think.
Well, here's the issue I have with it now. You could have done so much with it. I mean, look what they did with the actual game of Turtles in Time. A lot of recognizable characters, a lot of people you would know. In this one, and I think this is where it killed it for me as a kid, and I think it might have hurt a lot of others when they watched it as kids, is because the characters weren't recognizable. At least the villains weren't recognizable.
The villains aren't. They're just characters. Like, I appreciate the historical aspect of there being an Englishman trading guns with the Japanese to fight in the war. Like, I appreciate that part.
Sure, as adults, we appreciate that more, yeah.
But it's just, to me, when I remember seeing this as a kid, I remember it being stupid. But at the same time, it's kind of like, it had some dark moments. Like, they put when April goes back in time, they put her in a cage and put her up above a hole.
So you guys really didn't like this as a kid? Like, it's not even like you were disappointed with it in your adolescence or what or
I don't remember.
Because like I don't know. I feel like this is like, if you watch this as a 5-year-old, it's pretty great. Now, I'm only looking at your real name, but you introduced yourself as a pseudonym that starts with R.
Yeah, Red Fox or Rich, whatever you want.
Red Fox. How old are you? Just to get a sense of what, because you talk about seeing it as a kid. What age are we talking about as a kid?
I'm 34.
Okay, so you're the same age as Mike and I. Okay,
as both of you, yeah.
I still think you're crazy. Like I feel like every kid that I knew loved this movie.
Maybe in your region, maybe it was a regional thing. I couldn't tell you, but I thoroughly enjoyed 1 and 2. If I had 1 and 2, I had no reason to enjoy 3 as much or more. Those were pulled off way better, in my opinion.
See, because I feel like when I was a kid, the newest one was always the best one of anything. So 3 was, so as a kid, 3 was my favorite. I think as an adult, the first one has a little more depth. So I would say that one is my favorite. But like, going back in time, I mean, where else are you going to go besides feudal Japan if you're with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Like I don't care about the French Revolution or like the caveman times or
prehistoric.
Godzilla times.
If you get Slash, I'm all on board. I don't care.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, there were, because they hung out in the one time period, you were able to have some more. You were able to have some more characters. I liked that they have the little boy Yoshi, which I always think is a little girl until they say he's a boy halfway through the movie.
He works.
Yeah, but
he really does work. I want to say that, like, the whole, like, all the aspect of them getting to town, getting to the past and then getting split up between the 2 different groups, where Mikey gets left behind because he runs off in the scepter.
Mine doesn't even have a head. Oh, I love that line so much.
Yeah,
why did he show up backwards? Was the honor guard guy riding his horse backwards, or what happened that made him ride his horse?
That would be my guess.
Made him show up backwards. It doesn't make any sense, but it's so great. And then it doesn't have a steering wheel. Oh my god. Oh.
Those jokes were funny. I just can't remember much as a kid. I just remember not liking this movie as a kid, but I don't think I saw it when it first came out. I think I saw it later. I just don't remember a whole lot.
Oh man. And then like later in the movie when they're learning to ride the horses and Leonardo can just like do it. That's like the first time in any Ninja Turtles piece of media where Leonardo has a characteristic that actually, aside from people saying he's the leader, where he like actually has like a defining characteristic, and then I think it's Donnie and Mikey are looking at it and like, sometimes I hate that guy, and it's like I hate Leonardo too.
I like Leo a lot. So.
He's the one that I do. I mean, probably because I see too much of myself in him, but I see him as he's the Cyclops of the group. He's the guy that they always say is the leader, but they don't do a good job of demonstrating why he's the leader. Other than that, he says that they should listen to Splinter.
I mean, they do in the movies, no, not at all. Comics and other stuff, yes, but not in the movies. I
mean, in the first issue of the Eastman and Laird comic, they're all kind of just interchangeable. They have no character. They have no characterization. I know that
bandanas and no color and
yeah. I know that like later on there's a million incarnations, and so there's the current TV show has him like that he's the one that asked to be the leader, and that's why he's the leader. But
okay, that's kind of cool. I haven't watched any of that.
They've done that, but like growing up, when we're talking about seeing this as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, when I was watching this movie over and over again, and when I was watching the TV show and everything, and then also watching animated X-Men, where man, that X-Men 92 TV show makes Cyclops be the biggest dick.
Yeah, but it's not. Don't go watch it.
Like, it is. It's a great show. It's a great show, but it's the reason that everybody our age loves Wolverine. Because they write Wolverine really well and Cyclops not so much.
Agreed. But the other thing about this movie that I thought that I didn't notice, at least I have no recollection of, and I'm wondering, Rich, when I say this, I'm wondering if you had any recollection of this, is I never put together how many comment or quotes they take from old films in this movie. And to me, like, this perfectly makes sense because they're a bunch of turtles that are hiding underground because they're in the sewers. They're trying not to be exposed after 1 and 2. So they're just watching movies and they have cable.
Right. Yeah, I guess I never fully thought about it, but that's a good point.
Like there's one scene where April cuts her skirt or the dress thing she's wearing from Japan. And, you see her legs and they go swing. And I was laughing because it didn't come off as like the stupid Turtles Michael Bay movies where, oh, my shell's getting tight. It didn't come off as I'm horny for April. It came off as this is what the movie we should do because of that movie we saw on TV.
And well, I just was like, wow. Because I'd seen that a million times, but I had not, I don't think that I had seen, I mean, I know that I had seen Wayne's World and then watched this after seeing Wayne's World, but like for some reason I had not made the connection. It's like, that's a pretty, also, I don't know if you guys caught this, but when Kenshin first shows up, one of them says, "How'd you get into April's pants?"
Yeah, I caught. I was laughing at that one. Oh, that's not. I mean, again, that was a joke that as a kid you would go right over your head, but as an adult, like, that's funny.
And then the other one that I'm not sure whether this was supposed to be an adult joke was when Kenshin gets mad and throws the teacup and breaks. Casey says, maybe you should try decaf. And then a second later, he says, maybe you should try an herbal. And I was like, is he suggesting that they should be smoking pot?
That's the way I took it.
Yeah, I couldn't tell because it could be herbal tea, but it was like, or maybe that was a very subtle pot reference in a G-rated movie from the early 90s.
Well, in the early 90s, I don't think pot was as. I was very unaware of pot at that time.
Well, when we were that young, I mean, yeah, when I was a
5-year-old, I had not smoked pot yet. I not even a single time. I hadn't even tried it. I haven't done it in a while.
But it's one of those things where I really thought about that, but that's probably what it could have definitely been a reference out. There's so many references in this. Hey, Rich, did you have like a favorite movie reference that made you laugh this watch through?
Almost anything Michelangelo says. I mean, him on the horse backwards, as we discussed already. I mean, hilarious to me.
It really was. And I love when they have the helmets on because then they, it disguises their faces so people don't realize they're turtles and think they're just humans, and it's just funny.
Yeah.
Like they're the honor guard, and at one point, like, oh, I got the honor guard. Come, they're here, and they go underneath the truck and hang on to the underside of the truck to hide. I'm like, this is funny. It shouldn't be, but this is funny.
It's PG. It's PG for the record.
Okay.
I don't know. So much of it worked.
But I was happy to see they use their weapons. Actually, like we were saying, Donatello kicks ass, but people actually
they so much ass in this movie.
Really, only he uses his weapon, but still, they use their weapons more. They're not using yo-yos and baseball bats and other random shit.
I don't know. Yeah, and some of those, some of those hits, I'm like in the scene where I noticed it the most was when the rebels show up and they have their little fight before they team up.
At the waterfall?
I really noticed, like, he just broke that dude's neck.
Yeah, he was landing in.
Like, this was very, like, and just knowing that, like, in 5 minutes they're all going to be friends. Like, I really hope that he didn't seriously injure any of them. Fortunately, they have the best in modern medical technology of the 17th century.
I mean, they're getting their ass, like, the kicks they do, you're not going to survive that. Some of those kicks, especially by a giant mutant turtle. I don't think you're going to be okay.
Yeah,
but it was cool. I don't think even 2 they kicked as much. I think in 2 they fought like more comedic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's been a while though since I watched 2, a year to be honest. But for the podcast, so I don't really remember. But that was something that kind of stuck out with me with this one. It's like, they're actually kicking. They're actually really fighting these people, and they're fighting guards constantly with swords, and they do a pretty good job of kicking people's asses. Like, they don't get beat up in this movie like they do in other movies, like they do in 1 and 2.
Oh man!
Which was nice.
Oh man! The when they go into the old timey sewer, and it's like they get into mud. They're in the mud, and they're like It's like you could have landed in a big old pile of I know.
I mean, the way I took it is I wrote in my notes at first, like, that should have been a latrine, because that's what it would have been. There was no sewers, and we would have led into after all the shit would have went to.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe there were. Like, I do know that people. I don't know. I mean, it's Japan. I don't know my Japan history.
I know. When I see castles, I know a little bit.
But
later, PG-13.
Later, he literally dumps the bucket of crap into the thing right in their face.
Oh, that fat guy was funny though.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's another scene that I felt like this whole scene of like the way they're putting people in cages. You have people in the background, they're all chained up. I'm like, this is not friendly in any shape or form.
Right.
This is supposed to be a kid's movie, and they relentlessly talk about his weight every time he's on screen.
I know, and I love it when they finally come and they break in there later to get April out or whenever they do, and he sees them. He thinks they're demons because they're Kappa, because they look like, I guess, turtles look like demons in Japan.
I mean, I would freak out if
I goes
saw
inside the
giant mutated turtles.
How else could they rationalize it at that time? I mean, it's got to be demons, right? Humanoid walking turtles. I mean, it's got to be demons.
No, I agree with that. It was just funny when he puts himself in the cage, has the rope, and then puts himself up to get away.
And they bring it up too. Oh, I can't believe he's lifting himself.
Can't believe he's lifting himself up. Yeah. Yep.
I just. Like, everybody makes fun of him, even like the stupid Englishman, like Niles. That guy's making fun of him too, calling him, like, everyone's just calling this guy fat.
And that guy isn't in the best shape. He doesn't look the best.
I love Niles. I love the bandits being like idiots. Yeah.
It definitely works. And they're later being ruthless and intelligent. They really played off of him well.
Yeah.
Walker was a good villain.
He was.
I mean, I also, from the historical aspect, I like the idea of the Englishmen working with the Japanese, and, well, not really working with them, but trying to sell them weapons and, like, getting involved, because that's how they got guns originally, were from, I think, the English.
I think General. Yeah, he's really a rock solid villain. When they're burning the village, that's like, I was like, man, that's dark. If you understand what's going on.
Yeah.
I also like when they lock Mikey up in the food storage spot. There's just food everywhere. I just found that funny. They didn't have a cell, so just throw them where we put our food.
So that is one thing that did bother me. Not where they locked him up, but that Mikey, again, the star of the movie for me, had to take a back seat. He had to warm the bench for how long, when he could have been out there delivering lines better than the other turtles any day of the week. That bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, he shouldn't have been the one that they put away. But I guess they just... Hey, this is the first movie where Raphael didn't get his ass beat, I think, right?
They gotta do it with, they gotta have one of the turtles get separated from the rest of the turtles. That's just how these movies work, because if they're all working together perfectly, then nothing can stop them. So the only way to to stop them is to separate them.
Right, and I wish they would have maybe took a different turtle, threw him in a cell, and like take Leo, get him out of the equation for a bit. Their leader's gone. They got to figure stuff out, and they end up pulling it off. You got Mikey's humor. It all works out.
Who? I forget who goes into a coma in the first movie. Is it Leo or Raphael?
It's Raph. Yeah.
Okay. Leo gets kidnapped in the next movie in 2007. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen it in a long time. But yeah, you just did it to rewatch it. I mean, it's just part of the turtle thing, I guess. But I agree with you. I would have rather had Mikey more because Mikey was the one that was making all the freaking jokes. Like there's a Terminator joke at some point where someone's like, "I'll be back." There was a Dirty Harry joke.
When T2 is like the year before that, right? 92.
Hey, they did have cable. So I can buy it.
That's my favorite. My favorite reference was the callback to was the callback to Blue Hawaii, where he says, like Elvis in Blue Hawaii. I saw it on cable. I love that. Splinter like being like he's the wise old man, but he's also a little bit eccentric because he's been like, at least the turtles like go out and fight crime every once in a while. Splinter just stays home the whole time.
He doesn't leave He doesn't leave his sewer. Yeah. So
one of the only jokes in the 2007 movie, Splinter walks in and sees them all eating breakfast and says something wise, and he's like, "Okay, now I am going to go watch my stories." No, he says, "If anyone needs me, I'll be watching my stories." That's what he says, and then he leaves the room.
Okay.
One of the only jokes in that movie, but still a great one. Splinter's comedic timing is excellent in all the movies.
Also, in this movie with Turtles 3, like just them fighting humans, like they're not. I mean, they always fight humans, but they're not fighting foot soldiers. They're just fighting, peasants for a good chunk of the movie. Then they're fighting guards, and they're fighting also like the way the guns are portrayed and the cannons. I mean, I thought that was just interesting because again, it fits the era, but it's just kind of funny because muskets are not weak either. Muskets would murder them.
Right. Well, they never get hit.
I mean, you had that one part with Raph. I think the only time you ever see Raphael use his size, or when he throws his size at the girl with the bow. I think it's the only time you ever see it.
Yeah.
They don't let him use them very often. Because there's no way to use them without being very violent.
Right. Same thing with the swords. He uses, the only time he uses a sword is to cut off the top knot of the daimyo, which by the way, I know what that means because everybody has been complaining that in Book of Boba Fett he calls himself the daimyo, and they're like, why did you randomly choose the name of a leader of feudal Japan?
I watched Turtles 3 too many times.
Yeah, there is significance to cutting off the top knot.
Yes,
in history, in that culture, because he does it in. It happens in Seven Samurai. It's a sign of disrespect. The first samurai cuts his top knot off in order to trick someone into thinking that he's not a samurai. In Seven Samurai.
Oh, what were you gonna say, Rich?
When Raph is using his size, it's primarily defensively. You see him blocking a lot of swings, a lot of like in all those fights.
Like in the first movie, they let him use his size
offensively.
Yeah,
not really. Not in any of the movies, really.
He loses one of them.
There's that.
He gets very mad about it, and then goes and sees the movie. I
think he mostly did kicks in this movie, which is fine. Like I get it; it's a kids movie.
Yeah. I mean, really, the only criticism I had of the movie was that sometimes as an adult you watch it and you're like, somebody should have gotten stabbed. Like, not everybody. You do kind of need, in something like this, you kind of need robots or monsters or something for your protagonists to actually be able to.
Yeah.
Can I
just say
murder?
How weak this army is of Japanese soldiers. Like they can't freaking fight. I mean, they outnumber these 4 turtles and they get their ass handed to them, even by the peasants. They get beat up. They're not very good army. They are not a good soldiers.
Well, there's not that many of them, right? Because it's, I mean, the whole thing of, I don't know, like my entire perception of this is of what feudal Japan is like is Rurouni Kenshin and Seven Samurai, but
which is not
but I think the idea is you have a relative handful of warriors. I mean, literally the king's or the daimyo's honor guard, like his top 4 warriors have all gotten sent away. So his best, the best of the best are gone. And then he's got kind of the rest of his men, like a few dozen. Then you've probably got like hundreds of peasants who are, subjugated and have finally realized that they can just rise up and fight.
Can I just say how funny it is when you I didn't remember it to being this funny, but seeing the 4 honor guards when they're in the present with Casey Jones, they don't do a whole lot, but there's that one point when he turns on the TV to show him a hockey game. He's like, okay, let's play hockey. And they just drop all their gear and just start punching each other. That was funny. I have never been a hockey fan, and I don't watch hockey, but I get it. And I'm just like, this is funny because again, it makes sense. They have no idea what this world is like, so they're there, and he shows them, this TV because I think they're about to fight or something. He's like, oh, and he turns the TV on to distract them.
Right,
and they fight anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I really like, and I'm not sure. It might be a little bit. There might be a little bit of otherness, problematic racism, something or other there.
Oh, there is. Sure.
But it's not as bad as it I don't think in any way do they make the honor guard look like idiots or inferior. It's just that there's a language barrier and
they're out of time.
Oh, this is and I mean honestly, probably you would get really excited if you saw 300-year technology from 300 years from now.
Oh, I 100% buy that. When they're at the art, there's a point later on when the guy's activating the scepter and they got to get going and they don't want to go. And then also they're at the bar. It's like, hey, we're going home. Yeah, we're going home. They just keep playing in the arcade. They don't want to leave.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where would you? If you get to see a bar and you got to be at these places where you're drinking and you're playing games and you're partying, why would you want to go back to being a warrior and killing people and getting murdered?
All that junk food they were introduced to.
Yeah, they're what the hell is this? Where we come from, this doesn't exist.
I was thinking though, there's a couple things about this movie that lend itself to. I'd like to see the further adventures of these characters. First of all, they have this scroll that's got the turtles and Shredder on it, and it's where did that prophecy come? Or is that a prophecy, or is that a story of his ancestors? He says, I wonder if the turtles also if Shredder comes back, in a later story of this continuity, Shredder comes back and goes even further back in time, and they have to chase him, and they have an adventure there. And that's what led to that scroll. Or Casey says, leave the TV because it'll give you it'll give you a reason to come back. And it's wouldn't it be cool if they had, if they followed up on that and ended up having additional adventures with those guys. And then the last thing is, wouldn't it be cool if when Michelangelo came back, if this was going to be the last live action Ninja Turtles movie, obviously they had the next Mutation, which may or may not be in continuity.
Mutation. Oh, you're talking about the show?
Yeah,
it was
the
supposed
TV
to be
show.
A movie.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, but they made a TV show instead.
Is that TV show supposed? Rich, is it supposed to be the same canon as this movie?
It was originally supposed to. I don't know if it ended up being that way.
Okay,
it's certainly not in canon. It's not in 2007 TMNT canon.
Oh yeah, of course
because we don't have Venus de Milo. But I never finished that show.
Nor did they. I'm pretty sure. It got canceled, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Anyway,
it has 2 seasons though. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it went 2 seasons. Short seasons, but yeah.
I saw the crossover episode with the Power Rangers.
Yeah, in space.
I watched a little bit of it. I think my issue with the show was that it had they cross over with Power
Rangers. Which
Rangers? In space.
Yeah, I know which set of Rangers is it? It's not the original ones, I assume. In
space, right? Yeah.
It's the ones. 5. It's Power Rangers in space.
Okay, that's why I've never stuck around with Power Rangers enough. It's something where I remember watching the original series when I was a kid, but that's where all my history of it is. Even though a friend of mine is a big fan of it, and I just have not watched enough of it.
Yeah, you have Mighty Morphin, which was two or 3 seasons, and then you had Zeo, and then you had Turbo, and then you had In Space.
I have an expert on the episode right now.
And In Space is the the last of that continuity.
That Zordon era.
I think they call back to it in later stuff, and it's, I don't know. I'm sure that the continuity is more complicated now, but like after In Space, you had Lost Galaxy, which was not related to In Space. Like it's like a reboot of continuity. Although Bulk and Skull are still in it, I think.
Well, back to the Turtles. I know there was a joke at one point about there was a Star Trek joke. I don't remember why they made a Star Trek joke, but I remember they did, and I laughed. Was it time travel? I think.
Yeah. April says it's Star Trek time when they're when the thing is starting to go at the end.
I mean, again, reference to Star Trek 4, the worst movie.
Star Trek 4 is not the worst. What are you talking about?
5 is. No, 1 is. Never mind. 1 is.
I mean, I would say Into Darkness is. Into Darkness and Beyond are both pretty bad. Insurrection is also worse than any of the original trilogy movies or the original cast movies. I think all 6 of the original cast movies are pretty watchable. Yeah. One is dry, but it's still well done. And 5 is a little bit silly, but also not, I mean, compared with most movies that exist.
Oh, another thing that I want to mention in Turtles 3, there's one point with Yoshi where they give him a yo-yo, where he I think it was Mikey makes him a yo-yo.
Raphael.
Raph gives it to him.
Okay, they had to give Raphael a moment of being close to somebody.
Well, yeah, because Raphael has this little bit of a relationship with Yoshi, because Yoshi is angry, and he's like, no, you shouldn't be angry, you shouldn't be getting ready to fight, you should be playing with kites.
Isn't that kind of ironic coming from him?
Well, I'll touch on that. So Raphael in a lot of continuities, different media, they give him that soft spot for innocence. So in this one, he has that connection with Yoshi. In the IDW comics, he's the only one with a pet Triceratops named Pepperoni. And so that's that softer side of him that he gets to exhibit in most continuity.
Get a Triceratops from?
They time travel too.
Oh.
Well, it makes sense because when you have a flaw, when you have a character flaw, you can see other people who have that same issue, and maybe you can help them deal with it. And he sees, and especially like he dealt with his anger issues a lot in the first movie. I don't have much memory. I don't remember the second movie if there's angry Raphael stuff, but
there was, right, Rich?
In the second one, not so much. They actually toned it down a lot from that first one.
But like he has been theoretically, he has been growing over the course of these films, and so some of his weaknesses, maybe he should be, he's been there.
Okay.
And he even says like something along the lines of like, I know this seems weird coming from me, but you need to work on your anger issues.
Mm-hmm. Well, he would know, right?
Right.
Yes, he would.
Right. I really like that.
So I like the relationship with Yoshi.
I'm sorry. But when it comes to Raph, like when it comes to those anger issues, I think that's part of the reason why he does have those anger issues, because he's so sensitive. And it's like if you read the IDW comics, even Mirage too, they show his connection with his mother and things like that were deeper than maybe some of his brothers, because he was so sensitive, and a lot of that he's transformed into anger in his as he's went along with his life.
Also, another question I have: does Michelangelo ever even use his nunchucks in this movie? I don't remember them.
I don't recall him seeing him.
I don't think he did.
Pulled them out. I don't know if he really used them.
No, I don't think he ever used them for anything. I barely even remember seeing them on the screen. And one thing we haven't talked about yet is we talked a little about Walker, but Walker as a villain, like you see him throughout the movie off and on, and he's just so good. The way that he portrays like just being such an asshole and a villain. And, at one point the guy's like, okay, the Daimyo, he's trying to sell him guns. Okay, we'll trade guns for silver and silk. And he's like, no, I want gold now, because the threat is higher and the need is there. So he's being a capitalist, which made me laugh. But he's just such a good villain. The first one they seen, like Clint Eastwood, and I just laughed. I laughed hard at that one.
Seems like a very natural villain, and that always makes the best kind.
Yeah, I mean, there's one part with him where it's like, he's ready, with a cannon. Like near the end of the movie, they're ready to blow up, kill the turtles with a cannon, which again is going to do a lot more damage than just killing the 4 turtles in front of you. But they didn't care.
I really like how his character doesn't think that the turtles are demons mostly.
Which fits. Does that fit in English? I can't. I feel like English was superstitious too, but maybe not as much as Japanese.
But he's like supposed to be. He's trying to be above it all. I think in a lot of cultures, there's this idea that the simple country folk will find superstition. There's actually like a Spanish word for it, but I can't remember what it is. But it's like this idea that when something happens that's unexplained in the amongst like country folk, village, simple folk or whatever, it actually usually can be explained, but they're just too dumb to know. And so he has that's kind of his air that he's trying to put on. He's so much better than everybody else because he can, he knows that these guys aren't real demons, that they don't have any real superpowers. He can quickly identify that April is not a witch. Because she doesn't turn him into a toad or whatever, or shrink him down.
That was funny too when she's threatening to turn him into a toad and her radio goes off and the rap song starts playing. That's a really good scene and a really powerful scene for her. I kind of feel like her character gets a little bit sidelined in this, but at least we get a few moments where it's like she's like, yes, actually, I am a badass. And we can't forget there is a Hammer Time joke too in this movie at some point.
There is.
At some point, it's like Hammer Time, and I'm just like,
But then at the end, Leonardo says, "Okay, well, we're demons. Your bullets will just bounce off of us and kill you." And then he says, "Well, why don't we? Well, if you're so sure, why don't you shoot us?" And then he goes to the cannon, and which coincidentally, he has the reflexes to
go inside a shell.
Go inside a shell. I just even as I'm describing this, I think it would be really cool if you wanted a really dark Ninja Turtles story to have, or I mean, really cool.
Just read IEW. Right. Plenty of it there.
But for a, it would be an interesting plot moment if you had somebody shoots at a turtle and their head goes in, and then it ends up with collateral damage. Like somebody, an innocent behind them gets shot.
I mean, that kind of happened with the cannon when the cannon misses. So, okay, this guy should be dead. Like when they're fighting the,
he's
the Lord.
I wouldn't call the daimyo innocent.
He's not innocent, but he should have been dead. If a giant bell falls on you, I don't think you're going to survive. I know he was in the middle. I know, but still. And then the cannon hits it. Fucker should be dead.
It's fine. And he says, hey, it's Don King. But my point is, the villain, whatever his name is,
Walker.
Who? What? Walker.
Is the
Texas Ranger. Yeah, he doesn't know if they're demons or not, and he's too scared, and he's not confident enough, to actually, because if he just took his musket and aimed right at Leo's chest, Leo would be dead probably.
More than likely.
But he was scared, so he did the cannon, which
what's to prove a point. And that was part of it. I mean, he's a good villain. I do like how he's obsessed with birds and he keeps trying to escape. He's like, I can't forget the bird cage. Like I like that because it played off for humor. And
also, did you catch at the beginning that he probably murdered his kids?
No, I didn't.
Because he said, kids, they're so annoying, especially when they're fighting for the other side. That's why I stick to birds now.
Okay. I remember the line, but I didn't put in the idea that he might have killed his own kids. But yeah, he's also the only person that dies in this movie.
That's the only way that he could have previously had kids who fought on the other side of a war.
And then not have kids anymore.
And now he doesn't have them anymore.
Wow. Okay, they threw a dark little line in there that I'm sure nobody really caught.
Yeah, there's so much darkness in this movie but also this movie is so freaking hilarious. My wife was talking to my mother-in-law upstairs and was commenting on how I was just like cackling constantly when I was watching this film.
I was laughing too. I was watching it downstairs. My wife's like, I'm not watching this crap. And she went upstairs and she could just hear me laughing at this movie. And I'm like, I didn't think I was going to like this. I'm just sitting here laughing at it because it's just funny.
Speaking of the humor in this movie, there's one issue I did have with it. So obviously I've been praising Michelangelo this whole time, but I feel that in this one more so than any other one or any other movies that they've come out with before, every turtle is nearly a carbon copy of the next, not only in appearance, but with most of their humor and lines. I feel majority of that should have been through Michelangelo, and the rest maybe taken a little bit of a back seat, whereas everybody else feels very, very similar in this one.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
I would say they each have their own arc.
Yes, I can agree on that too, but
I think
they
that
are kind of copied.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think they each have their own arc. I mean, Leonardo doesn't do much, but Leonardo never does much.
He had 2 movies for that, or he did more.
Yeah,
There's a lot in the first movie.
I don't know. I guess that's a kind of an okay criticism, except for it's like they are kind of all. I think it's valid to write the characters similarly, as long as what is actually happens to them rings true. So, I mean, Raphael definitely has a chip on his shoulder, but finds his way with finds his relationship with Yoshi. Michelangelo weirdly wants to hit on Kenshin's girlfriend a bunch, but and does is his thing. And then I mean, this isn't really Donatello or Leo's movie. It's really about all of them. But you have so many characters in the movie because you have April, you have Casey, you have Splinter, you have Kenshin, you have the honor guard, you have the daimyo, you have the henchman, you have the fat guy, you have it's just you have so many, more so than even the previous movies. I feel like everybody at least is a character. It's a very much an ensemble piece rather than just being a Ninja Turtles piece. So I can see how that would then lend itself to maybe not differentiating the Turtles as much as maybe you could have.
What were you going to say, Rich?
So when you're talking about arcs, character arcs, and those are actually a bit different. Their motivations, or their side motivations, I should say, do differ. I don't want to say drastically, but differ enough to where it does give them some individuality. But when you get into their humor, specifically their humor, is way too similar for me. When Michelangelo is supposed to be that guy, and then when you contrast it with,
but Michelangelo isn't supposed to be the only guy that has that. They kind of always have a similar sense of humor amongst them. At least, well, or maybe not always, but if you think about the cartoon show,
that cartoon.
Which at this point in Turtles media, we have the comic, which obviously these guys don't really resemble the comic book characters. We have 2 previous movies, and we have the cartoon show. Yep, and in the cartoon show, the humor, a lot of the humor is about how all of them are telling jokes that all of them think is funny. And so I think that if you don't want to just have that's the problem with the 2007 movie, is that Michelangelo is the only one that has any sense of humor. And so then it kind of sucks the levity out of the film.
So when you compare this movie to the first and second, cartoon notwithstanding, because if we're talking strictly the movies, Michelangelo still plays that role and gets that chance to outshine and do his thing, and his personality becomes his own because of that. And this, it isn't necessarily his own. He pulls it off way better than everybody else does, as usual. But I just think each movie, as it goes along, they become more and more similar.
See, I feel like Michelangelo and Donatello are carbon copies of each other in the first movie, and then
very close, yeah.
And then Leonardo and Raphael have their fighting, so but when they're all together, they're still, they all have that, they all still have the, if you're talking about the humor, when they're not fighting, which I think that the thing is that actually there's not a lot of drama between the Turtles in this movie. I mean, yes, Raphael's like, we lost a brother already, and no April, and we're on horses. What's the, he gets mad when they first show up, but there's really not a lot of tension between them. They all kind of are working together throughout, which is actually I think that's a good thing to have, to have it be about the Ninja Turtles fighting the threat as opposed to infighting. Yeah.
Sure. And I guess if you want to look at it in a progressive way, as time has progressed, they can learn to work together more often. I suppose I can accept that. But I don't know. I'm not very, unless you're talking about the cartoon, I'm not used to seeing them all having just about the same exact humor.
I think the cartoon is is a pretty important piece of the puzzle at this point in Ninja Turtles lore, because I mean,
the comic wasn't known.
Yeah, the people that are watching the show, especially the kids that are watching the movie, are watching the show 5 days a week. Well, actually, they're probably not watching it 5 days a week. They're at least watching it
Saturday.
They're at least watching it
Once
Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Because Power Rangers is, by the time this movie came out, Power Rangers was out. So
Power Rangers came out the same year this movie came out.
Yeah.
And I became a Power Rangers kid for a little bit.
So I mean, this is kind of where it's on the way out. But I mean, the vast majority of there are times that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is syndicated 5 days a week and has an episode on Saturday. You know, so
I don't know if it would have been yet. 93. Okay,
yes,
probably.
Yes, definitely. I just watched the documentary in 1990. They were, before they made the first movie, it was on 6 days a week, sometimes 7. So,
and I forget how TV used to be sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot. There was a lot. I mean, it was definitely, when I was 4 years old, it was definitely an everyday thing.
Oh, there's a couple things about this movie I want to mention before we move on. One, there's when they go and they're breaking people out of they go to the castle and they let people out of the prison. The prisoners come running out carrying torches from the dungeon, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Why do they have torches?
Because there's torches in the dungeon. How else were they?
A lot of them have torches. Like, it was just funny. They come out with like torches and stuff, and I think it just was funny to me because like, you shouldn't have anything. You're in a dungeon.
I mean, it wasn't pitch black in the dungeon. There wasn't any daylight. They didn't have light bulbs. With
Walker, I think it's funny how they don't kill Walker. He does he kill himself because he's trying to escape?
No,
Casey Jones wannabe shoots him, right?
Yeah. He gets hit with the thing. It's the trope of the Disney villain falling to their death. Like, you don't want your heroes to actually kill them, but you want them to be punished for their actions. And the way they do that is you make them fall off of a cliff.
I don't think there was a splash at the bottom, was there?
No, it was just dead.
No, I think
there would have been a splash.
I think there was.
There isn't.
I think they showed him hitting the water.
No, I don't think they do. They just show him dropping.
I just watched it.
I did too this morning. I finished it.
I watched it this afternoon. So
now
I think I'm right.
But I don't want to go back and watch it again, so I'm not going to find out.
Regardless, I mean, he's dead, you know. But,
and then it's kind of touching how when they do go back, how Mikey doesn't want to go back at first. Mm-hmm. And then, like, even I think Raphael doesn't want to go back either. I mean, Donatello does, of course, because he's like, I can't live without microchips. I laughed at that comment too.
Really, Donatello and April are the only ones that want to go back at first. And then,
which I feel like makes sense, that they feel like, why should we go back to this place that we're not really wanted in? So I get it. Like, I didn't question that at all.
All right, I'm reading right here, guys. When Walker falls into the sea, he disappears before he hits the water. That's one of the goofs on IMDb.
Okay, so he disappears. Okay, so there's no splash, but they show him.
Well, yeah,
they don't cut away. They don't cut away. He just hits the water and there's no splash.
Yeah, somebody casted a Magic the Gathering blink spell on him and he popped out of existence.
Oh, maybe he goes back in time to the earlier times to team up with feudal Shredder, and then they pull the turtles back to kill. Yes.
Hey man, there you go. Fan fiction. Do your thing.
I'm just saying they could have done so much more stuff, like with this, like like if you did like a sequel comic book or a sequel novel, Ninja Turtles 3-2.
Just like the Final Fantasy.
Right, exactly. Like you do with Final Fantasy or whatever. You could have kind of done a follow-up. Or they do that with a lot of the Star Trek movies. There will be like a novel that is like following up on themes from a particular movie, or that takes place like 5 minutes after the end or 5 minutes before the beginning of a particular movie as like a tie-in novel. They do that with Star Wars too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think the Turtles have too much of that, but who knows? I never looked into it.
But there's freaking a million comics, so
I do own some of them for Turtles.
I mean, they do have alternate universes. If you think about The Last Ronin that's out there right now, and that's going on at the same time as the main series.
This is my soapbox on the Last Ronin. So I didn't want to. I knew that it was going to be delayed when the first issue came out, right? Just because I just had that feeling in my stomach. I was like, this is like a prestige indie title. It's going to be delayed. People are making a big deal about it. It's got 75,000 covers and reprints and stuff. It's going to be delayed forever. The first issue came out in like, I think 1995, right? No, it came out in like, I think it literally came out at the end of 2019, if my math is right.
Last Ronin might have been 2020.
Yeah, maybe the end of...
Last Ronin isn't done yet, is it?
Right,
No,
and it's not done yet.
Okay.
They are... Right now, we are waiting on issue 5.
Mm-hmm.
It is now 2022, I'm waiting for the trade. The trade isn't coming out until June.
How many issues is it going to be?
5.
No, it came out in 2020. That was the first issue.
Okay. So was it the end of 2020, like November of 2020?
10/28, October 28th, 2020.
Yeah. So it's basically been coming out quarterly.
Okay, well, I mean, I can give it the aspect of, COVID, so they were behind.
Well, I think they're just trying to stretch it out too, knowing that they have such a short story.
I mean, it's probably, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but like, I knew that I wasn't really like, it's the kind of story. So for those who don't know what The Last Ronin is, it's a future, like horrible future story of only one of the Ninja Turtles is still alive. And then, that character, a story with just that character in this horrible future. And it's good and dark, and Eastman and Laird are writing it, or one of them's writing it or something. But I knew that it would be like a really good, and I'm sure that like once it's all out, people are going to be like, oh, this is so great. And then there'll be like a movie adaptation and all this stuff. And people are going to talk about it like it's one of the greatest comics ever written for 5 minutes until they forget about it and talk about the next thing.
Yeah,
but
this is probably coming out faster than Doomsday Clock, right?
Like Doomsday Clock. Well, no, actually, Doomsday Clock was every other month. It was just that Doomsday Clock was 12 issues.
Yeah, I know issues.
So at this point, it's, I guess it technically is going to come out faster than the entirety of Doomsday Clock, but also Doomsday Clock read really well in standalone issues, but that's its own thing. But
any last things you want to say about TMNT 3?
My point is, I want to read this comic in one sitting. I want to read the whole story in one sitting in an afternoon, and I've been waiting so freaking long, and it won't freaking come out. And hurry up! That's my soapbox.
Okay. They want to talk about the ending of this movie real quick, about how like touching it is, where Mikey they don't want to go back, like we were saying. The samurai don't want to go back, but then like how they all do, but Mikey, because he took too long, he doesn't grab their hands, so he doesn't warp when the rest of them warp. And they're like, oh God, we lost Mikey. And the face of the samurai, when all of a sudden he's standing next to all these turtles, he just screams. And I thought that was perfect. Because like, that's what you should be doing. I mean, like all of a sudden you're just surrounded by a bunch of turtles. You have no idea what the hell's going on. You only saw a giant talking rat. You're like, you just scream and he runs. I thought that was just hilarious.
Him coming back down the ladder was cool. I think it would have been a lot cooler if he had been like 10 years older or something. Like if something had happened where like they were outside the time-space continuum and then they figured out how to do it right, and then he was able to come back and he had like lived a lifetime, that would have been like a really cool ending. But only if they knew this was going to be the last thing, which they didn't.
No, they thought there'd be another movie, I'm sure.
Yeah, and there was a TV show after that, and there was another movie, So
yeah,
I mean, it's it is what it is. But
they didn't know that. And the other thing, like how sad Mikey is, because again, they feel out of place in modern day, which makes sense. And then, the whole, like the ending of Splinter putting on the lampshade that Mikey got as a gift and dancing. And we made a comment earlier about the Elvis, like that's just that scene of him just cheering him up by that and helping him deal with deal with it in a way. Like I thought it was sweet, and they all start dancing at the end. I thought it was a really cute ending. I liked it. I laughed too.
Great film.
All right, I think we should go to Shelf Stacker Box. And Rich, do you want to go first?
Sure. For me, this is something I would shelve it.
Okay.
If you would have asked me years ago, before I watched it again, just yesterday, I would have said, oh, that's going straight in the box, or I'm frisbeeing that in the dumpster. But now, I can appreciate it a lot more, being that I'm older and I can kind of analyze things in a more mature way. I do like it. I would put it up there just as well with the other movies for sure.
Okay. What about you, Kendall?
So I would say, especially after revisiting the 2007 movie, this is probably my second favorite Ninja Turtles movie. I need to revisit the Michael Bay stuff because I did like those more than a lot of people. Like kind of like how I like the Star Wars prequels, but the original trilogy is still better. These we didn't even talk about. I know it's this is the third movie with like that, but like those costumes look so great. the animatronics of the turtles, like they look so real. And there was this time, like I'm not usually the guy that says practical effects are better than CG. I actually think usually CG is better, or practical effects that are touched up with CG or whatever. But if you can pull off, like Jim Henson could pull off those puppets in a way that it looked really real. I mean, those just looked like those guys. And, you know, I think those costumes are just so amazing. But
in this one or the others? I mean,
all of them. I think across the board, the technology to be able to bring those turtles to life is just like it's insane. Like I feel like it is something that has not been equaled in basically anything that has come out since. And I mean, you know, and we don't have Jim Henson anymore, so probably nothing like that ever will come out.
On this one, there was a different company producing those suits.
Well, but I'm sure that they were standing on his shoulders. I mean, it had been done twice before, and they were just doing the same thing. So, I mean, now that we have CGI, those characters are CGI,
and they're ugly.
Yeah, and I mean, like I don't want to bag on that, but like we just this is something from another time that is a unique film. Obviously, shelf.
Okay.
I mean, like literally, I think it's on my shelf. But yeah, this is like one of my. There's only I could probably count on one hand the number of franchises where I will revisit the films. Star Wars,
Dune.
No, well, only if Dune 1984, but like Star Wars. You know, if we're talking about franchise stuff, like I would put this ahead of Back to the Future. I would put this ahead of Lord of the Rings. I would put it ahead of Indiana Jones.
I agree with one of those, but not two of them.
Like I would say, I mean, really, like I'm trying to like probably. I mean, I don't really revisit MCU stuff or X-Men stuff.
I don't recommend that either.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like rewatchability, this is something that is like just really important for me.
Okay, it's
That's
also
how
easy.
I feel about the first Turtle movie. I watch it annually.
And I mean, the first one's better, but who cares? Like, I mean, you know, Empire's better than A New Hope, but A New Hope's still a good movie. Like, you know,
I disagree with you.
You think that A New Hope is a bad movie?
I do. I'm not saying I'm right. I love A New Hope. No, that's another podcast.
Okay, so are you saying that you think Empire's a bad movie then?
No, Empire's a great movie. I think New Hope's a better movie.
That's fine. That's an okay opinion to have. But what I'm saying is just because it's not as good as the other movie in the franchise, or we disagree about which movie is better in the franchise or whatever, doesn't mean that the movie in the other movie in the franchise isn't excellent. You know?
No.
I think I like Godfather better than Godfather Part 2. Some people like Godfather Part 2 better than Godfather.
Well, Part 3, yeah.
I've never seen Part 3.
It's okay.
But you know, it has people have its opinions. But no, this movie's great.
Okay, I'm gonna go last. I'm actually gonna put this on the shelf too. I did not expect to say that when we started watching this yesterday. I came into this, like I said before, no expectations, but I was laughing my ass off during this movie. And I don't like comedies. I don't usually, it's not my type of movie, yet the fact that these jokes were so much jokes from the 80s movies, and the idea that they were just, you know, watching TV because they're stuck in the caves and they can't, something just clicked with me where I had a great time watching this. I'm putting it on the shelf, and I will tell people, like, if you haven't seen it in years, try it. And if you smoke, maybe you should smoke first, then watch the movie if you do that, because you'll probably enjoy it even more, but it's definitely worth revisiting. It didn't age badly like I thought it would. And I was surprised.
Right. It really didn't. Like, I would say, because I think there have been times that I revisited it and was a little bit unhappy with like the convoluted, slightly messy plot. But I think on this viewing, it's just so funny. And I mean, the plot really does work.
Surprisingly.
Like it kind of shouldn't. It kind of should be more of a mess. There's aspects, yeah, like the guy the Casey Jones, not Casey Jones in the past, like seems like a really like forced added in character at times, but he's there because you got to have a bad guy to kill the other bad guy.
It worked.
Like, yeah, it totally works
to see him play a different actor. To play a different character, the same actor. All right, and I'm going to wrap this up. If you did enjoy this episode, we have done other Turtles. Not a whole lot for some reason, because I don't know why, actually. I don't have an answer for that, Rich, either. Why we haven't done more Turtle stuff. We did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, Film 16, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, IDW Origin, Comic 19, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Film 7, the first movie from 1990, and then we also did, which did not show up for some reason, let me see here. We did TMT Shadows of the Past Comic 28 and TMT Turtles in Time episode 44. So if you need more Turtles, check out all those episodes. So I'm happy that we did cover the first 3 movies finally. We do one a year for some reason. I wonder if there'll be another one out by the time we finish. I hope so.
You're the boss.
Another movie out before I finish getting all 7 of these done.
So in the next 3 years,
I hope so.
I think that's doable.
Yeah,
There's 6 movies.
7 if you count Turtles Forever, 8 if you count Batman.
Oh yeah.
But I
hate the designs in Batman. That's something we didn't talk about. Like,
oh, that's a whole other episode.
Classic
Kendall.
Classic turtle designs I love, and modern turtle designs I hate.
They're good in the IDW.
I'm that guy.
Oh, Kendall, where can people find you at?
KendallCast.ninja. Celebrating media
and movies.
Media, hobbies, and passions since 2014. Let me think if there's a movie that we talked about. We didn't talk about any Ninja Turtle movies.
No, you did Star Wars, you did Dune, Serendipity. Not Serendipity.
You can find Technodrome Tales on the. I don't know if Technodrome Tales is still on the internet anywhere, but that was a podcast I did where we were rewatching the animated series, and we did a review on the first movie as well. But
by Brad Bell.
Yep, Brad Bell.
Still.
Oh, it does still exist. Okay, yes. The real Brad Bell. He's a good guy, but we only did like 8 episodes or something. But we did the whole first series and the movie, and we made a joke about how in the first episode of Happy Days, somebody must have pinned Richie's brother to the wall with a knife so that he couldn't ever come back downstairs. And I think about that joke almost every day.
Okay,
because that's what happens in the cartoon. He gets banished because he doesn't bow because whatever Shredder's real name is sticks a knife on to pin his back to the wall so he can't bow, and then he gets like banished for that.
Okay. And if you enjoyed this episode, you can find all our other content on Podbean if you don't find it on your regular podcatchers. And if you want to help support the show, we do have a Patreon. For as little as $1, you can support us, and you can vote in the monthly Patreon polls that we currently have. Definitely go check that out. I want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro courtesy of Helena at Hell Halffury. You can follow her on TikTok. You'll see a link in the show notes. Also, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Bill Tucker, who did the MCU movies with me roundup. You can find him. He started his own podcast, A Gamer Looks at 40. Definitely go check him out. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. We are on YouTube at audio only, but we're there if you want to listen to us that way. And I think that's everything we need to say about this movie. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.